It's great. It works great. Flavio Volpe joins us, the head of the Automotive Parts Association. Am I saying that right? Automotive Parts
Parts
Manufacturers
Manufacturers,
Association. What's that?
Parts Manufacturers Association.
APMA,
That's
the
right.
Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association.
Yeah.
It's funny because you wear a couple hats, right?
Yeah.
So like when I talk about you with other people, I'm like, hey, you got to meet my friend Flavio. They're like, what does he do? I'm like, he's in charge of all the automotive parts across the country and all the manufacturers. I think he also builds electric concept cars, like Canada's very first one. He's deeply involved in international trade relations between North American countries, and I'm pretty sure he coaches several baseball teams. From what I understand, that's what Flavio does. And in my mind, kind of, oh, and he's just recently picked up the Order of Canada too. So maybe it's just because you do all that stuff. I don't know, but am I on the right track? Like, is that what you do? Is that who you are?
It's all related.
Yeah.
Baseball's a little bit bigger stretch, but if I'm in the car all over North America, I might as well coach a team, right? So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if I'm in Atlanta,
Yeah.
it might be because I'm visiting Porsche, but it also might be because I'm at East Cobb coaching a baseball team. So, anyway, yeah.
All your passions: cars, baseball, Canada. Good to have you. Great to see you, dude.
Yeah.
Big write up today. We got lots to talk about, and I think we got about 30 minutes to squeeze it in over a morning coffee. If you're just joining us, the jokes with Donald Trump coming in. He got his presidency certified a couple of days ago. Auspicious day, January the 6th, yet again. And the rhetoric that is coming out of, I call it mega America. It's not necessarily America. Is very anti-Canadian, very anti-NATO, if you will. Yesterday, he decides to launch into this little bad boy where he says he's going to take over Canada with economic force if necessary. There's a bunch to unpack. Let's play the clip and then we'll get to it, because the ramifications and some of the bullshit that we're starting to hear and see are fever pitch. So let's have a.
Mr. President, if we were to work under the assumption that you're serious about making Canada 51st state of the United States, the leader of the Conservative Party in Canada said, under no circumstance will it ever be the 51st state.
Maybe he won't win, but maybe he will. I don't care.
You had suggested.
Listen, I don't care what he says.
But Sir Lopez, you said you were considering military force to acquire Panama and Greenland. Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No, economic force, because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada. But here's the problem with Canada. So many friends up there. I love the Canadian people. They're great. But we're spending...
So...
It's a serious human being. This guy is the leader of the free world,
Well, that's a good place to start, right? When the leader of the free world and your greatest trading partner, greatest ally for the last 200 years is like, you're just going to fucking take it over. I want your thoughts. I mean, this is it's morphing. A couple of weeks ago, we were like, we shouldn't take it that seriously. Just the rhetoric of an idiot in a diaper. But is it? There's the question.
What, the diaper part? I don't know, but I've heard about it. I'll tell you
Pretty sure it's true.
The whole premise of the NAFTA or the USMCA is that you've got tariff-free trade between the two countries. Mm-hmm. So you do have a very clear and distinct free trade zone. So you've got that already. Mm-hmm. Okay? Like, you want to access minerals in Canada. Well, we're not China, right? These are not state controlled. You want to access minerals, you got to buy them. Mm-hmm. And by the way, one of the biggest and the longest serving investor sources in Canadian natural resources, America. I mean, these are all American companies doing from everything from oil and gas to gold to lithium. And then from a defense point of view, I mean, he's just talking. It's just nonsense. NORAD is the only organization between two countries anywhere in the world where they share a joint command and control of airspace. Somebody had me on an interview yesterday. Well, we have to scramble jets from North Dakota to protect the Canadian Arctic. I go, is this like was there some dogfight I didn't hear about? Or is this the Chinese balloon incident? The Chinese balloon incident is NORAD working. So the joint security of the two countries says, okay, well, this is why we're going to scramble a couple of jets and we're going to shoot down a balloon that we tracked for 6 months through other U.S. defense agencies and then didn't bother to tell the guy who runs NORAD. You just do better with what we have. You have everything he talked about already exists. Why is he talking about annexation of Canada? I mean, it's straight from the Putin playbook. So chaos. Say things that are not true from a pulpit. We subsidize them by $200 billion, he said yesterday. I don't get any checks from the U.S. Treasury, and I don't think you do or any of your listeners do.
No.
He's talking about trade balance, and that number is $53 billion. And sometimes it's been nothing. It's almost entirely dependent on the price of oil and the value of the Canadian dollar. Otherwise, like in automotive, we sent $82 million worth of goods, $82 billion worth of goods there last year, and we imported $79 billion. I mean, it's a balance. And in automotive, even on that $3 billion, what does that mean? Well, half of the cars that we export to Americans are American car companies. And unlike the places that he reveres, where the state controls everything, those car companies are owned by shareholders. And those shareholders are hurt when he undercuts General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis, which owns Chrysler, and Dodge. The shareholders in Tesla have done really well in the last month or so. I wonder why. I think I say all of this. I said in a piece this morning, some men just like to watch the world burn, but I said it calmly. I think we need to see what's happening in front of our faces. A month ago, you and I talked, and I said, I've been down this road with this guy on Trade Talks. You just got to be calm and not respond. But he sent his, I'm not going to use adjectives. He sent his son to Greenland.
He sent his cokehead son to Greenland to see if he could pick up a country for a sweet deal to annex Greenland. Yes, Don Jr. was there yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a loving father. I'll leave the kids out of this.
All right.
Even if they're meddling adults who are idiots. He talked about using military force in Greenland. He talked about using military force in Panama. He talked about how great would it be for our national security if we can help Canada keep Russian and Chinese ships out of their waters? Really? I mean, maybe I'm naive here, but I didn't hear about that. I didn't know about that. I didn't know we were being invaded from the east and the north yet at this point. He talked about Wayne Gretzky. Now, Wayne Gretzky is a joke for him, right? Except the second time he says it, you start to ears peak up. Yesterday, he said it again. I talked to Wayne and see if he'll run for prime minister or governor. Or Wayne asked me if it was governor. You think Wayne Gretzky? God bless Wayne Gretzky, was my hero when we were growing up.
Me too. I'm a massive Gretzky fan, so it really bothers me that they're friends.
I'm a little confused about him right now. But Wayne Gretzky definitely did not say, "Is that governor?" or and he also said that Justin Trudeau said to him, well, what would happen if we stopped buying your stuff? Well, Canada as a country would dissolve. He didn't say that.
No.
Okay, but he says it from a pulpit, and everybody listens, and they're like, oh, my God, this is dire. We need to listen. This guy is going to sow so much havoc. But luckily, it won't just be with us. It's going to be with the entire planet. It's going to be rough.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, Flavio, and this is kind of like, when we first started to hear it, it was funny because after he won the election, I was like, man, it's coming here. Like, I mean, in MAGA, Maple MAGA, you got the dollar store version politically up here with a lot of leaders that are feigning that, Canada needs less government, not run by the elites. It's kind of carbon copy with the conservative platform. And I think that's the concern for me today is that, sure, he can say dumb shit. The dude has been saying dumb shit for a long time. But there's something strategic about some of the dumb shit that he's been saying, to your point. He talks about Wayne Gretzky kind of it's almost like trial balloons, right? And it blows my mind because Dementia Don isn't the kind of guy that you think would be a strategic dude. But, floating the idea of taking over the Panama Canal. Apparently he's in trouble with Panama because he wasn't paying his taxes with his hotel. So that explains that. So there's like personal grievances wrapped up in this. But for a very long time, America has been very quiet about how powerful they are. We always knew the perception of power was there. And I was thinking about it yesterday, and I thought, all the tea leaves have lined up to the point where you legitimately have to take him seriously at this point. Seriously, that he's going to attack Greenland. Seriously, that he's going to tariff Denmark, which is what he said. If they don't give him Greenland, if they don't attack Greenland to take over that strategic hub. He said he's going to attack Panama to take over the canal to stop the Chinese. I mean, that's the most fucking ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. And then he said he's going to take over Canada, make it the 51st state. But he has, in my estimation, some pretty willing partners up here who have been riding the MAGA brand for a long time and really kind of partaking. Do you think with an incoming, because we can see this now, an incoming, conservative government, do you have any concerns that they're going to roll over? Do you have any concerns that we have leaders in this country to push back against this kind of stuff? Because, I read your piece this morning in the Financial Times, and I can't remember who it was that I think it was Dwayne Bratt said it. He was like, we just need to kind of mind our P's and Q's and don't go after the bully. Do we have any skin in this game? Can we push back against this kind of rhetoric? And is it even in our benefit to do so?
Holy shit, you give me a lot to unpack there, but I'll go to the core of it.
I asked like 7 questions at the same time, and I just hope that you can keep up.
Well, look, there's certainly a lot of people over the last couple of years politically here who've taken advantage of the same type of rhetoric that he has. Everything is broken, and only I can fix it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people hungry to hear that, not because they're looking for a leader who can fix things. They're looking for someone who can take a shot at leaders that they don't like, that land. And it works. The only question here in a theory of annexation, there's only 2 ways that happens. It's a merger or it's an acquisition. In a merger, 2 states say, we're going to go through what our Constitution says and follow that process. In Canada, any constitutional change first is a negotiation between the provinces and the feds that then ends up being a piece that goes to Parliament and then goes to all the legislatures. You got to get a majority in every single legislature. Then I think the formula says there's a 70% threshold for Canadian support. I can't remember whether that's counted through the population of the legislatures that vote or whether we have to go to a referendum. We did this in Meech Lake. We did this in Charlottetown. Someone would have to think that was a great idea, like Quebec separation was a great idea in 1980 and 1995. When we go through those processes, so you'd have to make the case to the Canadian people, and they would have to say overwhelmingly yes, and their legislatures have to say that, and Parliament will have to say that, and then you end up in a negotiation with a country, okay? Or you invade another country. That's really the only 2 ways to do it. That's the acquisition part. So unless he's saying, hey, by the way, when I'm elected king or when I'm signed in as king, I'm going to send the U.S. Army over the 49th parallel. You're talking about that other piece. And it doesn't matter what grifters like Kevin O'Leary say at that point. And it doesn't matter what loudmouths over here like Stockwell Day say at that point. It'll be, here's a constitutional process. Now, do you want to be the prime minister? Pierre Poilievre said yesterday, absolutely not, will never happen. Okay, good. I was waiting for him to say that. So who among us will rise to sell the cause of selling out the country to the U.S.? Nobody. And you can't do it for reasons of law in this country. Once you open a constitutional process, and if you see what's happening in Quebec, the current government's popularity and the Parti Québécois rise again. We have a quiet bubbling of separatist language again. Never mind alienation out west.
Mm-hmm.
If you open a constitution in this country, do you think Quebec's going to go along with it? Quebec will say, I want to be independent. Hey, look, we're selling out to the U.S. I want to be independent. What are the Americans going to send the armies to Montreal? I mean, so there's an absurdity in it. So why is he saying it? What's he talking about? What's the chaos he's trying to sow? What discord? Ultimately, I think he's serving other masters, and some domestic, some international, and he's, he has been adjudicated in court as a fraudulent grifter, making money for his friends.
Yeah.
But the other thing that he's been musing about, you know how he does this, he jokes and he teases out.
Yeah.
This 22nd Amendment of the United States Constitution was enacted to ensure that the presidency isn't something that someone can take advantage of and be president for life. FDR, who was elected 3 times and served into a 4th term before he passed away, was the last one. And then there was the 22nd Amendment. It said there's a limit, 2-term limit. And he's been saying, well, I think that's consecutive. Now, again, this is a rule of law country, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have a different opinion and you want to challenge the law, you file a claim. And or you go out, if you're the president, and you go seek an opinion from the Department of Justice. Or if you're the Republican Party controlled by the incumbent president, you say, I'm going to launch a legal challenge that ultimately we would like to get to the Supreme Court. Now, we know how the Supreme Court majority is constituted in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And we know how it's voted on a couple of very key issues there. Roe v. Wade, for example. And we know that Amy Coney Barrett was never a judge before she was a nominee to be on the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to hear a lot more of that. And it's actually what the dictators and authoritarians that he idolizes do.
Mm-hmm.
Is you so I think
that's what Putin did, right?
Yeah. So he's sowing all this disruption around the U.S. and certainly doesn't care if we burn. Mm-hmm. He's talking about a universal tariff in the States. Well, that's a consumption tax. Like everybody in the U.S., where they're going to pay an extra $1.25 a gallon for gas, they're going to pay $15,000 more for the same pickup truck they bought last week. They're going to pay 25% more for avocados. There's going to be a lot of toast that's going to spoil on both coasts.
Mm-hmm.
If they can't get their avocados. And I'm being facetious, but I'm not. He's creating havoc there because the one thing you can have direct control of the buttons are in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he intends to hang around for just his 4 years. Remember, he's got pending lawsuits, and he was indicted on 78 felony charges.
Well, he still needs to be sentenced for the 34 that he was convicted of in a Manhattan courtroom, if you remember that. Like that sentencing is still coming up. He's still trying to get that washed, and not just his impeachment, but this is the thing that makes me crazy. Is as you're reciting the things that he's done and that he's still on the mat, that he still is a criminal, that he's been able to outrun all this stuff, and now he is fully putting the screws to not just allies in NATO, which is an interesting thing. He's putting the screws to the Canadian and American Automotive Associations. He's going to put the screws to farmers, the oil industry, and also what? All for what? So he can be the king of America, so he can establish an American monarchy. Like, this is what I and I get it. I understand it. But the thing that I really struggle with is that, that it seems like the entire American judicial system, from the Supreme Court down, it seems like the entire media ecosystem isn't just embracing this. They're treating it like a fucking game. right? They're treating this like, hey, this is, we know we're going to sell way more newspapers. Like Jimmy Carter's procession, his funeral procession was yesterday. It got dwarfed. Nobody talked about it. Everybody's talking about this lunatic invading Canada. Everybody's talking about his term limits. Everybody's talking about what he's going to do to Greenland and Panama, which is the whole idea. But I have, and if I was sick of Trump during his previous administration, and we got a break from the last 4 years, which was really kind of nice, I'm still sick of it, but I'm fascinated because I don't doubt that he is going to try to get rid of term limits so that he can stay in power as long as humanly possible. I don't doubt that he's going to actually invade Greenland, which is unthinkable if you think about it from our perspective, guys like you and I that grew up in the shadow of World War II and this gilded age of peace. Like, I don't doubt that he's going to come up to Canada. I don't doubt that he's going to try and change the border or send 300,000 green men like Russia did to Ukraine several years ago in Crimea. Like, everything is on the table. And so it's really hard to kind of figure out, how do you approach this from any common sense? Because we also live in a time when, and I know this is a lot to unpack and I'm not asking a question. We also live in a time when, empire making is a thing, right? And we also live in a time when Bitcoin wants to replace the Federal Reserve. We also live in a time where, the richest people in the world are the people that have the ability to actually do those things. And so I find it like, okay, no Canadian wants to be American. But can we entertain even the idea of empire making and Canada being part of a broader empire?
It's the most fundamental question here for Canadians. What the U.S. will do around the world. We've spent decades agreeing and supporting. Sometimes the official stance, like in Iraq, the government at the time said, we're not going. There are a few instances where we didn't go, but we were always part of the coalition of the willing.
Yeah.
And so we're going to disagree with some of the things that they do. Like, this guy is extremely unlikable, and for lots of reasons. And he polls extremely unlikable in Canada, by the way. So I'm not, I'm sure I'm not a singular voice here. But he may do something stupid in Greenland. They have U.S. bases there. They wouldn't have to invade, They're like, we're there. We take. The fundamental question for Canada is, do you understand when he trolls and or pushes about annexation, what that means? It's, if you're serious, well, there aren't U.S. bases here. You're either talking about invading a country or a proposal. And we've had proposals between these two countries that are fundamental, that drove elections, like reciprocity in 1911. The greatest prime minister this country has ever seen was Wilfrid Laurier, and he lost an election about free trade with the U.S. The 1988 election was about free trade. And we talked a lot about sovereignty then. If you're old enough to remember those debates, John Turner, who was a friend of mine, God rest his soul, he said, we're going to lose Canadian sovereignty if we go to free trade. Now, there's been a lot of conversations like that over the last 30 years in Europe, 40 years in Europe, as they went from the European Commission to the European Union, and then they went to a joint currency.
Right.
But in all of those things, those countries debated, went through their internal processes, and either approved and joined or did not. And so if you want to lead this country, especially if you want to lead this country right now through the next 4 years, you have to have an incorruptible commitment to the Canadian Federation and doing well by Canadians. And that has to be in the fucking window before anybody comes in to see you. And now, does that mean that you wouldn't consider things? Like, if there was a reasonable human being who was the president who had said, hey, by the way, I think we could do well by having a common currency and one central bank for the continent, and then you handle your domestic affairs and your foreign affairs, but the monetary policy will be, and and brought a proposal, we'd have a healthy debate here and we'd go through Parliament. That's not what's happening here. If I'm the Prime Minister of this country, I say, you got a proposal, put it on fucking paper. And then we'll think about it. We've been partners on this continent, whether we were New France or British colonies or two separate countries for the same 250, 400 years. We should always be open to thinking of how we improve this. That's how we came up with NORAD. But I'm not going to listen to you on your pulpit at your house with fawning, uncritical press who love the show of it, bully us. Well, you're not going to fucking bully us. That's a healthy relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a healthy relationship, and you're also not writing off the idea that maybe there might be closer economic ties or a central currency, because I was thinking about it the other day, to your point. EU seems to be able to do it, right? You've got a bunch of countries in and around Europe, obviously the EU, and you've got agreements with different countries. You get different amounts of money for the kind of infrastructure that you have within those agreements. You've got one currency that works. And I know there's a lot of people that are really proud of Canada. Like, I love this country. I fucking love it. I'm a dual Canadian citizen, British immigrant, came here when I was a child. My family got these incredible opportunities, allowed us to live this incredible life. So I'm really proud of it. But I got an email from someone the other day. It's like, hey, dude, this is about empire making. It's about how you decide where you're going to align yourself, if you're Canadian, within what is probably going to be a bigger opportunity for Canada. I'm like, whoa. To your point, there's like, I'm not trying to figure out where I sit in the empire of North America. But what I'm trying to do is figure out, we get emotional about these things like you and I do over our national security and our sovereignty. But, calmer heads might be able to figure out a way to make some kind of closer relationship work that, Americans and Canadians might be able to both take advantage of, as opposed to just freaking out and going, never in a million years will we, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we've had an evolution of our relationship. The fact that we have free trade comes from a pact that we made in 1965, the first pact between between G7 countries for free trade, which was the Auto Pact. So in the auto business, we had free trade. Then we went to free trade in 1989. Then we went to NAFTA in 1994. The Europeans were doing the same arc. 1992, they did the Maastricht Treaty, and in 1993, they launched the euro. I don't know about the benefit of one currency and the fiscal policy, but we have a democratic process. And we have the rule of law. So if you want to say to me, here's the argument, well, I'm going to listen to the argument. I'm going to vote my way. Okay, and you might convince me. Brian Mulroney, who's vilified by some corners in this country and then revered by others, said the prime ministership is about big moments. You're expected to be the caretaker and the manager. What's big moments? What are the big moments? And he took it on the chin, that big chin of his, on free trade. Okay, and if you listen to Jerry Dias, who's a friend of mine, he says free trade and NAFTA, like FTA and NAFTA, hollowed out manufacturing in this country, and it was a bad move. He's entitled to his opinion. I think there's metrics that will back that up. But there's a good counter argument. The point is there's counter arguments and arguments. It isn't. I'm not going to get bullied by an online bully whose buddy has built an empire on government subsidies and grants and credit schemes that he sold to other countries who got.
You talk about Elon Musk. You talk about this cat here who, here's a quick little note Justin Trudeau put out on Twitter. There's a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would become part of the United States. Workers and communities in both countries. Justin, of course, just resigned, but we'll get to that in just a sec real quick. Workers and communities, both our countries, benefit from being each other's biggest trading partner, security partner. Elon Musk then tweets, girl, you're not the governor of Canada anymore, so it doesn't matter what you say. Thoughts?
I mean, could you imagine me saying that?
No.
And who am I? Okay. but a grown man. And you could say, well, you're not the prime minister of Canada anymore. Thanks. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. But now Elon Musk got a personality on a site that he bought to push out all the people who used to stuff him into lockers when he was a kid.
Yeah.
And
by the way, that's the best explanation. I say that all the time. And they're like, what do you make of the broligarchy? I'm like, these were guys that got their asses kicked like day after day after day, incels that managed to find a way to code their way into payment processing systems like PayPal and decided they were going to treat the rest of the world to how they were treated between the ages of 8 and 21.
Here's the PSA: be good to people when you're a kid, because it has consequences. Elon Musk has been anti-Trudeau since this one day during the convoy slop. Mm-hmm. When the federal government said we're going to use FinTrack to track cryptocurrency transactions, Elon Musk posted a picture of Trudeau calling him Hitler. Yeah. And all of the people who don't understand the grift said he's talking about freedom, free speech. Like the irony of you have the freedom to show up at the parliament and do whatever the fuck you want with it and blockade it. That's real freedom. What Elon Musk was worried about was here is a consequential G7 country that has said, we're going to track those payments. And whether we have the technology to do it or not, once you put the statute in, there is probably, I'd have to look at this, a really long statute of limitations. So if you're found to break that law, 7 years from now, we'll figure out how to track transactions through a blockchain. Or if we never do, the point is it's illegal. Mm-hmm. That's where he lost his mind. That's where he's moved on Justin Trudeau. He hasn't moved on Justin Trudeau because Justin Trudeau and his government didn't embrace policies that were good for Tesla. Like up until I opened my mouth loud and long for the last a year and a half, you could buy a Tesla made in China and get a Canadian federal purchase incentive for that car. And I said, we put $1 billion into the pockets of a company that makes nothing here. While they shipped it to us, they shipped a product to us from China when they could have shipped us the same product from Texas. Elon Musk, if he was just who he presents himself to be, the CEO of Tesla, the CEO of SpaceX, and whatever else he's in, should have loved Justin Trudeau's government and Justin Trudeau. But that's not what he is. That's not whatever.
He's a petty dick, right? He's just a petty dick like that. You know, you've got different self-interest wrapped up in that MAGA movement, but he's just a petty dick. Like, you know, Trump's pettiness comes out in his Panama Canal stuff because his hotels weren't paying taxes. So Panama hit him with a bunch of stiff penalties and took his hotel away from him. Next thing you know, they're invading it. Same thing with Elon Musk. His self-interest is, you know, processing crypto, payments, Bitcoin, that kind of shit. So Canada then leans on him because of the give, send, go stuff, because we know a lot of that stuff was foreign. And it was like, dude, I've got the give, send, go list actually in my back pocket. I could probably put it out again. I probably should, just to piss some people off. But, you know, and then he goes after, because that's his space, right?
I lost you for a minute. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there you go. There you go. But then he goes after Justin Trudeau because that's his space. Because Justin Trudeau and this government said, hey, we need to probably keep track of that kind of money. But they want to DeFi everything. And not the time to get into the crypto Bitcoin conversation. But do you think we're at a disadvantage now because Justin Trudeau has resigned? I know we did that earlier this week. I know you are in the know and know people. But do you think we're at a disadvantage now because of the prorogation of Parliament, et cetera, et cetera?
The timing of everything politically in Canada here is not ideal for this transition to the Trump administration. It really would be better if we had continuity and a government that had a runway. We don't. And that's tough. I think the prime minister had no choice but to resign. You know, we're about to go through a transition to a new prime minister in a way that people are losing their minds over. And I remind everybody, this is the 8th time out of 24 prime ministers that we choose a prime minister through a party process. Mm.
Oh, like you mean unelected because they're going to have to put somebody else in to take his position in the next 60 to 90 days. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, we're a parliamentary democracy. You vote for your local rep, and then the party chooses who their leader is. And anyway, I don't have to go through the civics class there. It's not ideal. But we'll be in a general election by the summer. There's no question here. And then the Canadians can decide who they want to lead us. They're in the debate over what Justin Trudeau's legacy is. What's not debatable is that during the NAFTA renegotiations that were foisted on us, Canada did very well against expectations and then also against the index line. Like in automotive, we got a better deal. And that better deal, the reason it was a better deal, we figured out how to find a win-win. There's 25% more purchase volumes in Canada and the U.S. in automotive because of it. That took a steady hand. Yeah, and of course we know that the rhetoric during that negotiation was like this. But now we know that's how Trump is, and we hear Trump's calling him names during that time and called him two-faced. Said Chrystia Freeland was a nasty woman and we didn't really like her. But we know that that's how he negotiates, and he doesn't like the people who do well, but they did well by us. Now, would we have been advantaged if that Justin Trudeau, with that momentum and that confidence, met Trump this time? Yeah, I think so. But I do think also the clock is gone on that Justin Trudeau. There's been a lot of other things that have happened over the last few years, including, hey, by the way, you're in your 10th year. This is how we do it in Canadian politics. Yeah. John Chrétien, who figuratively and literally, took the opposition by the throat, the Shawinigan handshake.
That was a sweet one. Yeah, you grabbed that guy.
Yeah, or Stephen Harper. I mean, like there's a
10 years. Yeah.
There's a picture of Stephen Harper and me. Okay. Like Stephen Harper, 10 years. Brian Mulroney, the original run for Pierre Trudeau. I always say that Pierre Trudeau's 1980 accidental win was more of a mismanagement by the PCs and Joe Clark, who should have been able to turn that into a re-election. They kind of blew it. And so he got his extra time. But Trudeau from 68 to 79, those are the terms, right? So Justin Trudeau would not Justin Trudeau meeting Donald Trump without the prospect of an election year isn't the same Justin Trudeau's political force from 2017 and 18, but he did have the experience and the wisdom of having dealt with this. I do think, people make a lot about, wow, they don't like each other, this, that, and the other. To be honest, what happens behind the scenes, like Robert Lighthizer, who was his chief trade representative, supposedly didn't like Chrystia Freeland, but I know, and now it's been widely reported, and probably because I talk about it, she had him over for dinner in Toronto. Like, you don't go to somebody's house. Like you don't go to people's house that you work with, never mind people that you're negotiating against. Behind the scenes, these people all had a rapport with each other, and they were able to find, in a really tough negotiation, some win-wins, which goes back to what we were talking about. Now, incoming Poilievre government really, really has to find that voice. I mean, he did well by tweeting yesterday, hey, this will never happen. But then he talked about how the Liberal and
then he shitposted everybody like he does. He used it as another springboard to shitpost Liberals and the NDP and the terrible country. I mean, it's just the same shit to me. It was just like, oh, this will never happen, but fuck you, fuck them, fuck this. It's just the same rhetoric from him.
If he becomes the prime minister, then he'll be my prime minister. He's going to get all the support that we gave to this guy, Harper, and this guy, Trudeau, and everything we got, insight, network, momentum, posture, whatever, man. But you got to be the prime minister then. And so if you're up by 20 to 25 points, you should talk like the prime minister now. Doug Ford is filling that gap now.
How great has he been, by the way? Like he's been awesome. And he doesn't miss an opportunity to tell people he's on Fox either, right? He's like, I'm on Fox again, and I watched it last night with Jesse Waters. Jesse's like, you know what? I don't understand why you guys don't count it a privilege to be taken over by us, is what he said.
Oh, God, I saw that.
Did you see that?
I want to smack that guy right in the fucking face.
It's the hubris that I see, right? And, there's Doug Ford front and center. He's like, well, golly, and I like Doug. I do. I don't like him for some of the cronyism.
Yeah.
But, he has not just filled a gap. And I tweeted this the other day. Dude deserves a ton of respect because he's the only guy standing there going, okay, we'll just take over Alaska. And I know that this is posturing and it's all bullshit. But, there's something to be said for someone who's willing to stand up for Canadian values and sovereignty and to be able to push back in the face of that. But there's also something to be said for a guy who has the ability to say, not only are we going to push back, I'm going to present you with this terrible branding, by the way, Fortress Can-Am. I'm going to present you with this Fortress Can-Am opportunity where we're going to do a bunch of business together. But at the very least, he's going, hey, fuck you and your rhetoric about taking over our country. Why don't we just do business here? Let's talk, right? At the very least, he's being able to strike that tone. But Fortress Can-Am, I know when you talk to him, I know you know him. Can you get him to call it something else, please?
Well, he did. Yesterday he called it M-Ken. And I really got to talk to his branding people. But I'll say this, you remember the first year for Ontarians who are listening to you.
Yeah.
In that first year, it was not good. He was polling worse than Kathleen Wynne in her last year.
Yeah.
And for lots of good reasons when you look at the political landscape and how it was all unfolding. Raptors win the championship. There's 3 million people in Nathan Phillips Square. He goes up on stage and he gets booed. And I'm going to give him 100% credit on this right now. He got booed. He got off that stage and goes, maybe I'm not listening to the right people. And made some changes. That moment was, I think, a mirror.
Yeah.
For him. Okay, here, this is what everybody else thinks you are. Then the world fell apart 6 months later, and we got into the pandemic, and he went from 20 points approval to 76 by the way he handled it. And how did he handle it? With sincerity.
Mm-hmm.
Met the moment every morning and said, we got a problem. Politics doesn't matter to me. Christy Freeland is my buddy. We're going to do this thing together. Oh, the Americans won't send us masks. Flavio, can you get some masks? Yeah, Woodbridge Group can make some for you. They called me in that first week and said, will you come and do a presser with the premier? Because we had launched this, I'd asked auto suppliers to get into the medical business. Can you do it if I can get you the specs? And they did. And they go, well, will you come in? Well, we walked in. I thought it was just this is before we did the virtual ones, the virtual press conferences.
Mm-hmm.
They go, well, you're going to go in to that press room and there's going to be an X on the floor. And you're going to go in with him and Rod Phillips and Christine Elliott and Vic Fideli. Now, some of your viewers and listeners will know that I worked for Sandra Pupatello in the McGuinty government.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, we're post-partisan. I don't really care, but some people really care about this stuff. Well, the footage of us walking in was like Reservoir Dogs. and the first thing he says, I see the teleprompter in front of him. I'm glad to be here with my friend Flavio Volpe. And I'm like, I got to tell you, in that moment, you'll see my stone face on that if you look it up. But it's like, wow, we are in a new planet here.
Mm-hmm.
And all of my friends in the press gallery are like, holy shit, what are you doing there? What are your friends going to say?
But you know what I liked that. I think Canadians like that, Flavio.
Yeah.
You talk about a nonpartisan age that we live in.
Yeah.
Doug said something the other day when he was asked about Trudeau retiring or resigning, and he's like, I'll work with anybody. I like him. I like Christian.
Yeah.
I like all kinds of people. To your point, everybody likes a nonpartisan politician, and he's done that really well. To your point, didn't mean to interrupt you, but go ahead.
No. Hey, look, I was just going to say what you said there. It was my own anecdote. It sounded like it was about me, but it was really about Doug Ford. The first Doug Ford would have been so partisan that I wouldn't have gotten in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we would have been vilified for even trying to step into their domain. Instead, he said, all right, I can help. This is real. You think this is real? Then I control the methods and the processes to make this thing happen. Now you fucking do your part. And he has in this space, his musings on Mexico first, Canada, U.S., Mexico, and now his musings on how important the Canada-U.S. relationship is and what we should be doing, and the proactivity to go out and do it.
Yeah.
He sounds like a candidate for prime minister.
Yeah, he does.
And the kind of things that I tweeted yesterday, the entire political landscape for 2025 in Canada will be dictated by your response to Donald Trump. Leadership races, federal races, provincial politics. The guy who's getting it right, if I had to write a list of the top 10, the first 3 would be Doug Ford. And then some of the rest. And Pierre Poilievre said the right things yesterday. He's got to now do it consistently. He doesn't have to do anything for me. What I think Canadians need to hear is that the incoming prime minister is absolutely resolute, that I'm very open to conversations with our chief partner, but this is a sovereign country. So if the conversation starts with, doesn't matter what you think, we're going to take it, well, I'm not having the conversation. Now, he said that, I'm paraphrasing. I think he said that yesterday. I think this country needs it. I think we need to hear that from all of these liberal candidates for leadership, because the midterm step will be, the interim step will be another prime minister, a liberal prime minister, and even if it's for 3 or 4 months through a summer, it's material. I think the Trump issue and the U.S. issue is going to absolutely dominate. I said this yesterday, and people were like, "Well, there are other issues." Yeah, there might be other issues. There might be other issues that matter, but this right here, if you get all those issues right and this one wrong, it's disqualifying. That
changed for you over the past month, huh?
Yeah. He was talking about tariffs because of some trumped up, no pun intended, border dispute. But I think if you listen to what he's saying, all those different pieces, it's important to understand that he has a wider objective. You need to understand that objective. That it's chaos. His true intentions have not revealed themselves. They're very, very likely domestic. But if he's ready to disrespect this country time and time again, and people say, well, no, he's disrespecting Trudeau. Well, Trudeau's gone. You're disrespecting Canada. Now, if that doesn't get you to say, nah, fuck, I don't want that, I'm not taking that, then you're not a patriot.
Well, let me play this clip. To your point, Trudeau's gone. He didn't talk about Trudeau. As a matter of fact, he was actually nice when you think about it. He shined Pierre Poilievre. Listen to the start of this clip again yesterday, where you hear him go, "Hey, the conservative leader of the party in Canada." He's talking about conservatives. I want you to listen to this very carefully. We'll only listen to the first little bit of it.
Mr. President, if we were to work under the assumption that you're serious about making Canada 51st state of the United States, the leader of the Conservative Party in Canada said, under no circumstances will it ever be the 51st state.
Maybe he won't win, but maybe he will. I don't.
So there you go. He's like, to me, I mean, this is kind of the brilliance of that idiot. But there's a threat in there, right? Where he's like, maybe he will win, maybe he won't. Like, he's pulling strings up here with the Conservative Party. Maybe. I mean, it's just off the top of my head. But the other part in there was interesting. He's like, I don't give a shit what he says. Like, he's already moved on because he knows that Trudeau's done, and he's moving on to the next guy. And I don't know if the next guy knows what he's doing. I mean, and that's really the disconcerting part for me is, you can judge by intention, but fascinating little quip right at the start of that. And I would love your thoughts before I let you go, because I know you've got more important business to do than hang out with me all morning, dude.
I don't know if it's more important, but it is lined up on the door. But I watched the same thing yesterday, and I thought, what would I think if I was Pierre Poilievre and the incoming government there? He signaled to them that I'm no friend of yours. I don't care if we claim the same part of the spectrum. I'll do what I want with regards to Canada. And I think that probably if I was him, that would galvanize me, that I took the right position and I got to stick to it. And I have to also consider, if we have mutual friends like Elon Musk, maybe that's not a good thing right now. maybe I need to think about what's important for Canada. Like, love him or hate him. And certainly there's a love him or hate him on Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh, and there is on Pierre Poilievre. We certainly did not agree on a hell of a lot of stuff that was happening, especially during the Freedom Convoy days, you know.
I can't believe you call it that, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I was the guy who went and got the injunction. Yeah, exactly. I got an injunction, and other people got other things. He's going to be the prime minister.
Yeah.
And if he's going to be the prime minister, then meet the moment. And Donald Trump told everybody he doesn't give a shit who the prime minister is. That should be a good moment for you to say, okay, like if I'm being careful about all our mutual friends, I don't have to anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great point. And it was backed up today by a couple of actually really impressive journalists who were like, you know, the rumors in conservative circles, at first they thought this was beneficial. Then they thought it was funny. Now they're shitting their pants, basically. Now they're like, he's coming for all of us. Like, and so this is going to be a real test of faith. You said that a couple times too on your Twitter feed. You know, it's going to be time for some pretenders to stop pretending. You know, if they're interested in their sovereignty, it's going to take some fucking serious people, Flavio, to protect our country.
I think you're the same. My country is my country.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter who the leader is. I'm not going to say, oh, this isn't my Canada. It's my Canada. So if Pierre Poilievre is the prime minister of Canada, like when Stephen Harper was the prime minister of Canada, well, I'm Canadian.
Yep.
And I'll serve our interests proactively. I'll offer everything I have. And it won't matter to me. If you say to me, Canada matters to you, then we have common cause. But you got to demonstrate it. And that'll be the test. And I've said, like you're alluding to, I said in my feed, and I say it everywhere. Look, now is the time for gritty people who are thoughtful, who are committed. And just like there was a transformation of Doug Ford that's turned him into Captain Canada, anything is possible if you have the baton and you have the platform. Now, who do you want to be? Do you want to be Captain Canada? I'll celebrate you. But if you don't, then I'll put you to the test. Just like I fought with with not just the Trudeau government, but with Justin Trudeau himself on the TPP negotiations. I thought it was a sellout. And just like I fought with him on the EV mandates that I think we're going to be really, really tough for a very important industry, I'll fight with the new government too. But all on offer, humbly, everything that we got is theirs if they form government. But then fucking be the government.
For the people of this country. Well said. Well said. You know, the vitriol that we've seen so far, when it comes to telegraphing what a Pierre Poilievre government will be, I believe annexation or some kind of deal with the United States is probably far more likely to happen under a conservative government, specifically this one, knowing that they share the same influence, really share the same playbook. And a lot of these guys connect in the back end. You and I both know that. A lot of the the strategists, for MAGA country and Maple MAGA, a lot of these guys share notes. And so I'm hopeful, and like you, should someone have the opportunity to push back against this, or at least push back in a way that's incredibly beneficial for this country, that doesn't give up our sovereignty, that stands there, to your point, I'll give you all my stuff. I'll give you all my support. I don't care, what your ideology is. I don't care, which institute you were schooled in. I don't care, who you grew up with. I don't care if you're left, right, center. I don't care who you are. What I do care about is the same thing that you care about and so many other people in this country care about, is at what point are we going to get together and be bigger than the moment? Because this is a big fucking moment. Yep. This is a huge moment for Canada. It's a big moment for Canadian manufacturing. It's an enormous moment for Canadian energy sector. It's a huge moment for people whose parents and grandparents fought in the First and Second World War. I mean, this is why we did it. This is why they did it. And this is why we live here, because we're really proud of where we live and we want to be part of something bigger, but we don't want to be told that we're going to have to be part of something bigger or else. So if there is a government that comes in, to your point, and if Mr. Poilievre can come in and strike that tone, and if he can stand up for the values and the virtues by which Canada was formed and is founded on, which is The Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and I said this the other day, it's such a beautiful fucking document. It's the most beautiful democratic document that I've seen of any democratic country, much better than the Declaration of Independence, in my opinion. So when you look at what we have to stand up for, we got a lot to stand up for. And you know what? I think a lot of people are really worried too, and you should be. You should be when your sovereignty is being challenged. You should be when the most powerful man in the world, who's losing his mind, who will do anything for $1, including sell Bibles and Christmas ornaments with his wife's in a bikini, still to this day, and fake $2 bills. And when you know who you're dealing with, it's easy to kind of understand that you don't want to be a part of that. But at the same time, we're all going to have to start pushing in that direction. Flavio, I really appreciate you taking some time today to talk to me about these things. Thanks, buddy. Thanks so much.
I'll leave the final word to you. That was good.
Well, you go put out fires. How many more interviews did you have to do today?
All
right. Thanks for doing this, buddy. I appreciate it. You have a great day. All right. Flavio Volpe, ladies and gentlemen. Flavio is the head of the Automotive Parts and Manufacturing Association here in Canada. He's the Merit of Canada winner. He's an Order of Canada recipient. Deeply involved in the USMCA negotiations, which actually ended in the, what Trump calls a subsidy. He's one of the reasons why Canada made out like bandits and we make more from trade, and the trade surplus is on the Canadian side. So he deeply understands the issues. And I think we all understand the issues, right? I think you kind of have to. And listen, we can sling mud. This is kind of the important part of this conversation too. We've all spent the last, 4 or 5 years telegraphing fascism through different political parties, demeaning the character of different politicians. I know I have not been kind to Pierre Poilievre, and nor will I. Unless he decides that he wants to be a prime minister for all Canadians. And unless he can separate himself from MAGA and the influence of MAGA, which I don't believe he can. We'll see. And should he become the next prime minister of this country, he deserves our support, provided he wants to become the next prime minister of this country, which includes getting a national security background check, which he still has not. And if you are going to stand up for Canada's sovereignty, you shouldn't be compromised by the idea that you refuse to sit down for a national security background check, which checks on any kind of impugnment of your character due to relationships with foreign governments, foreign entities, people who have the ability to hurt Canada's national interests and our national security. You should at least want the people that you govern to have that comfort. In a time when the United States is pushing up from the south, basically saying, fuck you, we're going to take your shit. And Russia's pushing down from the north saying, fuck you, we're going to take your shit. And Russia, China, and the United States are talking about taking over the Northern Passage in Greenland for trade and military purposes. Yeah, that's what's happening. So Canada's on the hot seat. Canada's not just like a country that, is here. We have more minerals, more natural resources. We're situated strategically perfectly to be part of somebody else's empire and to be the jewel of the geographical crown of any new empire. Specifically a new American empire, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about new American empires. America wants their own empire. They want to make Greenland part of their empire. They want to make South America part of their empire, and they do. They will. They'll try. And they want Canada to be the jewel of that crown. And what they're trying to do is trying to tell us it's good for us. It is not. It is not good for us. Maybe a common currency might be good for us, but absorbing any part of what America stands for is terrible for Canada, including their Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. They'll want that to be part of any deal here in Canada. And if they don't get that part of the deal, they'll just come up and take it. And let everybody buy guns and ammo. Then everybody's going to get drunk at the guns and ammo and liquor store and go shooting rifles. Like, America's the best. No, it ain't. America had over 300 school shootings in the last 5 years. 300. Canada has had 6. The American education system is a fucking disaster. Canada paces ahead when it comes to education, specifically educated kids who graduate. The number one cause of death of children under the age of 18, guns. In Canada, car accidents, COVID. America is like Russia. All of that freedom that they promised everybody that nobody ever got, they just told them, hey, go get drunk, shoot some shit, go work at this shitty job. We'll give you some food stamps. Don't worry about cleaning your yard. You can camp out wherever. If you haven't been to America, specifically outside some of the nicer cities, some of the better states, it's a dump. If you haven't been to Russia or seen pictures of Russia, I mean, you only see pictures of Moscow. It's a shithole. These are countries that have destroyed their own value, destroyed their own places, destroyed their own states and countries, destroyed their own infrastructure, destroyed all of their natural resources, who are like, Think of it like this. Some dirty fucking bastard who lives in a townhouse, stays there for a long time, absolutely abuses that townhouse, and decides he's just going to move into the next one, even while occupying this one, because he can't stand the fucking mess anymore. And they've turned off his water, and there's bed bugs, and it's syphilis, and uneducated hillbillies running around in there, punching him in the face at night. I'm just going to take over the next townhouse. That's what they're trying to do. I'll read you a little taster from a friend of mine on Twitter. Actually, it's not. It's from Signal. Won't tell you who it is. Some people will know who it is. This person absolutely wants Canada to become part of the United States of America. He's like, Trump is going to annex Canada. Wild times. It's going to be the best. And I said, yeah. He also said windmills are driving whales crazy. So fuck him. This person then said, when will you see what is happening? It's all play, man, an act, a facade. There are no sides. The elite are tightening the rope around our necks, and we are pulling the rope. This is the birth of an empire one way or another. And it might be. It might be. I don't know if it's going to be the birth of an empire. Am I opposed to being part of a larger empire in North America? No, I'm really not. But I'm opposed to it being taken from us and being forced to take part in that empire. I'm opposed to having a rapist be the leader of the free world or the proxy leader of a country. I'm opposed to Christian nationalism being the order of the day in this country. I'm opposed to the idea that my vote doesn't matter and a country can just walk in our back door, front door, walk across the border and just kind of take over our shit. I'm opposed to that because we were not raised on American values. Canadians were not raised. We were raised on privilege. We are raised on the idea that there are reasonable limitations to what you can and can't do to another human being. In the United States, you can shoot the fuck out of anybody who goes on your front yard. In the United States, people like Elon Musk continue to destroy what that country stood for and wants to do this systematically. He wants Canada. He wants Germany. He wants England. He wants France. I get it. I'm opposed to that. I'm opposed to foreign interference. I am pro-Canada. I am pro-social democracy. I am not a liberal, nor am I a conservative. I've only ever voted conservative, and I still might in this next election. And you know what's going to determine that? Not fucking COVID, vaccines, left, right, libtards, cons, none of that shit. Fuck, it's so old. I'm so tired. It's exhausting. But you know what's going to determine where the majority of our votes are going to go in this next election, which will be in the next 6-8 months? I'll tell you exactly what will determine that. Are you going to stand up to this horse shit? Are you proud of this country? I can't say that Pierre Poilievre has put out a lot of tweets or made a lot of comments about how much he loves this country. Like none. And if it has, it's been forced, like during the Olympics. We had a prime minister that was actually like tweeting about how much he was so proud of our Canadian Olympians. We did an incredible job. We won hammer throw, the men's 4x100, big surprise. Yay, Canada, cheer for Canada. What's Pierre Poilievre, prime minister in waiting, doing? Fuck Justin Trudeau. Socialists or Nazis. He was tweeting through that. Yeah. Calling socialists Nazis. Because Hitler was a socialist. He doesn't even understand fucking world history. He was doing an interview with Jordan He just fucking did an interview with Jordan Peterson. He's sending content over to Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is putting that content out for Pierre Poilievre. Elon Musk wrote as hard as he could for Donald Trump and is the reason he is the president of the United States. So do I have a lot of faith? No. In Pierre Poilievre? No. Neither should you. However, if that little shithead shows some skin, little ankle, if he's like, hey, look at this. Yeah. I might. Because it's that important to me. We know Jagmeet Singh won't. He'll be busy telling everybody it's good to be poor while he stays at the Four Seasons and rolls around with his Rolex. We know the Liberal Party's been castrated. So it is up to you to pick someone of character who's interested in the sovereignty and the national security of this country. It's someone who truly does stand for the values and virtues of what Canada is and means. One guy. There's one guy. And listen, is he under investigation for international money laundering? Sure. But there's one guy that I'd go, that's our guy. Doug Ford right now. He's got like the worst approval rating of any premier in Ontario's history. He just got his PP slapped and apologized, taking a whole bunch of land that didn't belong to him to give to his developer friends and owners. But sometimes the moment requires a specific individual. Like Churchill. Universally hated in England. He's been banging the war drum for years about Hitler. All of a sudden, Hitler's at their doorstep. They're like, oh, okay, make him the prime minister. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Thanks to Flavio Volpe from the APMA for joining us this morning. By the way, maybe the best follow on Twitter. Really good dude. So make sure you give him a follow. Thank you to you for watching. Thanks to our friends at Field Trip Health Clinics. Field Trip Health Clinics have been helping people with ketamine-assisted therapy. Look at that beautiful room. You can have ketamine-assisted therapy and psychotherapy. They give you a little bit of ketamine. You sit down, you disassociate from any negative thought patterns, and you do some really deep work for a couple hours. I'm scheduled for my ketamine-assisted therapy appointment. You need to do the same thing. Go to fieldtriphealth.ca. Again, Field Trip Health Clinics, here to help you, here to help me, here to help everybody who suffers from PTSD, not only PTSD, and Field Trip Health Clinic. Hang on, let me get this. Yeah, there you go. There we go. Oh, there we go. There's my friends. You can call them today. You can call them right now. Ketamine therapy in Toronto. They're located on Duncan Street at Field Trip Health. Ketamine offers hope for those with treatment-resistant depression, other treatment-resistant mental health conditions who have not found success with other interventions. This innovative psychedelic treatment works quickly to alleviate symptoms, often when traditional therapies have failed. Their experienced team ensures a safe, supportive, legal environment to guide you to a new path of healing and mental wellness. You can get a hold of them today. You can check out everything at their website called fieldtriphealth.ca. That's the name of their website, fieldtriphealth.ca. Look at everything from ketamine-assisted therapy, KAT. You can also look at MDMA-assisted therapy, psilocybin-assisted therapy, neurofeedback therapy, pain management. And, of course, they've got individual therapy as well. Listen, it's a tough road, and a lot of people are drug resistant, SSRI resistant. Some people are on that that treadmill. I know I was, where you get put on certain antidepressants, certain medications where it's not working. You try it for 3 weeks and you got to do it again and again and again until you find that right mix. And sometimes that right mix never comes around. Efficacy rate for ketamine assisted therapy, they're 8 sessions, 16-hour course, something like 70, 80, 90%, depending on who the person is. But it's in and around 80, 85 when it comes to rapid and long-term relief with no, and I mean no side effects from any drugs you might have taken before. So give these guys a call. Ian and his group are wonderful. Dr. Mario Nucci had them on the podcast. You can check out the podcast as well. Anywhere you get your fine podcasts, including Google, Spotify, Apple, and of course, YouTube. Dean Blundell Show is where you can find it, fieldtriphealth.ca. They've got a bunch of locations, not just in Toronto, but they're in Vancouver, they're in Montreal, I believe they're in Ottawa now. Yeah, Regina, Montreal, Vancouver. They've got at-home ketamine therapy now. So make sure you go to fieldtrip.ca. Again, fieldtrip.ca, book your discovery call. You can get in contact with them with the contact tab right at the top, send them a message, and you can do a little quiz. You can figure out whether or not you should be part or want to be part of some kind of really cool ketamine-assisted therapy treatment facility. That's awesome there, too. Wonderful people. Don't have to be afraid. We're all messed up in our own ways. They're just helping people get unmessed up a lot faster, healthier for a longer period of time. fieldtriphealth.ca. Thanks, everybody, for being part of the podcast. Really appreciate it. Don't forget, everything we do can be found at Crier Media. Not only can you find us at Crier Media, you can find us on YouTube, Dean Blundell Show on YouTube, Crier Media on YouTube, our Twitter feed on X at It's Dean Blundell, or The Crier Media on Twitter. Rate, subscribe if you can. We're going to start doing more of these podcasts with people who actually give a shit about this country, to try to understand what exactly is going on and the meaning behind some of the bullshit that we're seeing get imported into Canada. I think that there's an opportunity here for Canadians to stand up for Canada. And we're going down that road with a number of different brands and companies. We've got several meetings booked over the next couple of days to talk about how we can promote Canadian values, how we can protect Canadians, how we can get them to understand what's going on around them, so that we can do away with extremism, whether it be anti-Semitism and the rise in anti-Semitism from imported extremism, whether it's, the rise in MAGA and Maple MAGA in this country. That's imported extremism as well from a different country. But what we want to do is wrap our arms around this country. We want to get people together who want to do that as well, to protect Canada from the idea or the people that have an idea that Canada needs to be part of something bigger. It doesn't. If anything, America needs to be part of something bigger. There are states in that United States of America who truly, truly wish today, like California, New York. Talked with a friend of mine who's in politics. Actually, he's in the Senate in California. He's like, there's a conversation that we're having right now about whether or not we would be better off having an agreement with Canada and leaving these United States of America. They're not so united. You're going to have to get through a civil war first before they come up here. Have a great day, everybody. Really appreciate you being part of the show. See you soon. Bye.